Welcome to Be Hero Fights. I'm Tom,
And I'm Brian.
and we are here to discuss
Or Fuss.
over two hotly debated, highly related topics.
So last week we brought to you guys something a little special, a little different. We talked about some of the Grimm's tales
Mhm.
that have been out there and some of our favorites, how they were a little bit, well, a lot different than what Disney's done with them and things like that. And it
I
was a
learned
fun
some
time,
wild stuff.
right? And you guys have been commenting and reacting to those ones really well. My personal favorite, well, my personal most interesting one was the Rapunzel story on there. But you guys should go take a listen to that. It was quite entertaining. Um, but with that being said, we're gonna go and have another great fun episode for you guys today. But before we jump into that, normally we would do our comments here, but we're going to actually talk a little bit about the DC fandom that dropped today while we're recording.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's quite interesting. Tom didn't get a chance to see any of it, so I'm going to relay some of the stuff with him. Uh, just as before we go into any of that, though, as you guys know, we just started adding in the new feature of matching a alcoholic beverage or drink in general to our episodes. Well, it's the time of the year where we're trying to get a little bit better, plus save money because both me and Tom have kids.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm on the current medication that I can't drink, and Tom's trying to save his money. So, for right now, until the beginning of the year, we're going to postpone doing that. But with that being said, there's a lot of great alcoholic drinks out there. I know somebody who'll be on later that's currently drinking Mike's Hard Lemonade. Always a great choice.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, DC fandom. That was a crazy 2 hours, by the way, of watching that on YouTube. If you guys haven't gotten to watch it, it's still available. They have actually clipped out the important parts, but you can watch the whole thing. They have a lot of variety of things going on right now. You guys might have seen some of the trailers out. An interesting one that they're doing is with Dwayne the Rock Johnson, but it's not the Black Adam one that I'm talking about right now. They did show some of the stuff from that, which was awesome. But no, they're having Black Adam himself, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, also voicing Crypto the dog,
Yes.
and Kevin Hart is voicing Ace the Bat Dog in a DC Super Pets, a League of Super Pets movie.
League of Super Pet. I love it. Perfect.
Hey! Pets, plural. You ever heard of a league with one dude in it? I haven't.
Well, they say I'm in a league of my own.
Oh, you're in a league of your own, all right. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody as messed up as you.
Next summer, Dwayne Johnson as Crypto. Kevin Hart as Ace.
How much did you have to drink?
As you guys can see from that clip we just showed you real fast, that it's going to be a crazy movie dealing with Kevin Hart as the Bat Dog and Crypto, the Super Dog, from being voiced by Dwayne the Rock Johnson. But again, like I mentioned, they also showed some stuff from Black Adam. They showed a clip from, well, like a behind the scenes clip from the new Shazam Fury of the Gods, which is going to have Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren in there as the bad guys, which would be quite interesting. They had a variety of different things that they talked about from the comics. Some of the stuff for the shows, like they are giving a fourth season to Titans, which is exciting because I really like that show. They showed some clips for the finales for both Titans as well as Stargirl. There was all kinds of variety of things in there. But to bury the lead, the two biggest ones I think were both the pseudo teaser trailer that they showed for the Flash movie starring Ezra Miller in it. And for all you guys didn't see it, they pretty much gave us exactly what we were expecting. It's going to be a take on the Flashpoint story, which is my favorite Flash story. So it should be very awesome. The odd part to me though is they have Ezra Miller playing two roles in it based off the trailer. Uh, we also get to see the back of the '89 Batman Batcowl, so I'm excited. So it should be good. And then, of course, speaking of the Batcowl, we saw the newest trailer for the Batman, and it is very good. Everything that they're showing and all the signs that they're showing right now is it looks like it not only is going to be the Riddler, that's the bad guy or the main bad guy, but they're doing it in a way where it's almost like he's Jigsaw more than he is a traditional Riddler type. And he's being played by Paul Dini, which is a great actor. You guys probably see him in like There Will Be Blood or in Swiss Army Man. He's a really good actor, and this should be a really good role for him. Plus, they show a bunch more stuff with Colin Farrell's Penguin, and you can't even tell it's Colin Farrell. It's going to be really good. Um, so if you guys have a chance, go watch all that stuff. I was excited watching it, so you guys should definitely go watch it. There's also great stuff about some of the games coming out, like the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, as well as the um, the big one, Batman Gotham Knights, where you play as a role playing with the Bat Children. You have the three different Robins, Nightwing, Red Robin, and Red Hood, as well as Batgirl. So it'll be super fun with that. So there's gonna be a ton of stuff from there. I can't even tell you everything that was on there because I'm trying to remember it all, and it's just had so much great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I've just been seeing things pop up in the social media that's gotten me very excited as a huge fan of all these characters. And I'm actually very excited. I know when they announced Robert Pattinson as the Batman, there was an outcry, but me personally, I was very excited because everyone craps on him because of Twilight, but if you actually look at his other works, he is a phenomenal actor that's been proving it for a very long time. So I couldn't be more excited. The last trailer that I saw for the Batman was incredible. So I can't wait to actually go watch this trailer, and I just couldn't be more excited. I did like what you said though about kind of taking the Saw approach. So like that has me really interested because that's something I've always wanted them to do a Batman movie where Victor Zsasz is the main bad guy and just have it be a really gritty, more of a detective movie. Just give it a hard R, kind of the Saw vibes. Like I think that would be incredible. So, but regardless, I'm very excited, and yeah, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. I will be very shortly, and yeah.
speaking of that, before I forget, there's another one that you'll probably like, Tom, because I know you're a fan of the Batman animated series.
Hmm.
Uh, so Bruce Timm,
Hmm.
the creator of that series, is coming back with a new series that he says is going to be the spiritual successor to that series. And not only is it going to be him, but also Matt Reeves, the director of the new Batman,
Yeah.
and J.J. Abrams
Ooh.
are all producing this. And what it is it's a noir style story, where it'll be taking place during the 40s, and so Batman will be placed in the period of the 40s ish, and it'll be
Mhm.
taking place during that, and it's all a noir style as a spiritual successor to the Batman animated series, 90s. So I'm super excited for that too.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I love the '90s Batman animated series. It's amazing.
But guys, we're not here to talk about DC today. No, sadly not. What we're talking about today are reboots. Specifically, the reboot of a late 80s, early 90s movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, Child's Play. So we are going to debate whether the original Child's Play movie or the new Child's Play movie that came out in 2019 is better.
Yeah.
But we can't do this by ourselves. We always like to have somebody come in and join us. So what we're going to do is call out to a friend of ours to have them judge for us. You guys have seen her on here before. We're bringing her back, Melanie.
Hey, Mel.
Hi.
So Mel, how are we doing?
We're okay. We're good.
Good. Well, just so you know, recently we've been working on wanting to be a little more interactive with our judges. Working to a new feature we're going to do down the road. So, Mel, I just want to ask you a couple of quick questions since we didn't get to do this last time.
Okay.
Uh, we both know that you're really into the art stuff and cosplay stuff. What is your favorite cosplay you've done so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. At this particular moment, I would say it's kind of a toss up between I do Warrior Fiona specifically from the fourth Shrek movie. So, yes, I literally paint my entire body green and carry around an axe bigger than my head. It is
Nice.
glorious. And Midna from Twilight Princess, mostly because I spent 4 months making the helmet, which sticks out about, you can't see anything like this far, and yeah, it's huge.
Nice.
Right on.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I for the ones I've seen both in person and some ones that you posted, Fiona's probably my favorite.
That's
That
everyone's
one and
favorite.
you do a really good. You do a good sadness. I like that one. And then the Penelope von Schweetz from Wreck-It Ralph's a good
Vanellope.
one. That's what I said.
V.
You just heard the P sound.
You hear what you want to hear.
Yeah, right. And so, both are really good. So, all right, guys. So let's go ahead and get right into this. So Tom, it'll be you and I fighting today. And which side do you want to fight on?
You know what? This might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually really enjoyed the new one. So I'm gonna try my hand at kind of being the devil's advocate today, and I'm gonna go for the new one.
All right, and I'm gonna go with the one that wasn't garbage, and I'm gonna go with the original one.
Hey now, nothing about the new one is garbage.
So, all right, guys. So we all know how this works. We go through 3 rounds. Round one, we explain the bit we're fighting about. Round two, we rebut. Round three is our final thoughts. So we're all ready.
Round one. Fight.
All right, tell them why don't you start us off.
All right. Um, so Child's Play, 2019, is the reboot of the classic campy wonderful series, Child's Play, which it actually took me way too long to dive into this series. I didn't start watching the Child's Play series till probably like 2017, but I very quickly fell in love with it. This is one of my favorite series. So when this movie was announced, I actually was very concerned. Um, After watching it, by no means is it a perfect movie, but for God's sake, it's Child's Play. So let's just keep that in mind because it's Child's Play. Uh, there's a couple key things that I think really make this movie stand out. For one, it's got Mark Hamill. Like, enough said, right? Mark Hamill is Chucky. What more do you want? We are talking about the best voice of the Joker is Chucky. We're talking about Luke Skywalker is Chucky. That's just a wonderful thing to think about, honestly. Like, that's why I wanted to say it. That's just fun. So that is a really fun point. That being said, it's got a really good cast. First of all, Aubrey Plaza, adorable, love that girl. She plays Karen, Andy's mom. Andy, played by Gabriel Bateman, and then a couple other notable actors. We got Brian Tyree Henry as Officer Mike, and then Carlise Burke. Is she any relation, Brian?
No, actually, I think it's spelling differently.
Is Doreen, Officer Mike's mom. So this movie, it takes a different approach. It definitely tries to modernize it for our times. I'm not gonna rag too much on the first one, but the first one deals with voodoo, which came out at a time where spiritual horror, it wasn't too much after like The Exorcist and that kind of stuff. So spiritual horror was still kind of a very prevalent thing. There was a lot of taboo things, especially with the idea of voodoo. I don't think that really kind of came out of taboo until more recently. It probably still is for a lot of people, but this movie decided to kind of take a completely different approach and go into something that we've heard about from plenty of other movies, and it kind of takes the AI approach, but specifically the like voice assistant AI, which I enjoyed. Being a huge fan of voice assistants, I have many echoes throughout my home. um, I thought this was a very relevant, or at least modern, approach, and an interesting way to go about it, for a modern audience, especially for the teenagers that are going to be going to this type of film, in this day and age. So, um, I did like that approach. Um, all in all, this movie surprised me. I was not expecting much. I thought the dynamic between all of the characters was very real. As a single dad, full-time single dad, who has put himself out into the dating world and struggled with that, and trying to find a way to keep my kids safe, but also meet and mingle. I really related with Aubrey Plaza's character, and you know the trouble that she finds herself in. So I think they like that. If you have any experience with that, I think you'll buy into these characters really well. I think they're actually very well written. They play off each other really well. There's only one character that I thought was kind of annoying. Um, we can, I don't even need to talk about that. We're talking about how good this is. Um, uh, and then outside of that, I just I'm going to end my opening argument on the final scene, the bloodbath, if you will, in the department store. Amazing. I could not have asked for more. In fact, I think it was one of the best horror scenes, for kind of the slasher horror, I guess, that I've seen in a very long time. Very imaginative, very creative. Um, I had tons of fun with it. That scene to me made, not that the movie was bad before that, but that scene like really just like made me fall in love. I was enjoying the movie before that. I fell in love with the movie because of that scene.
Alrighty, well, that was definitely an argument. Um,
A good one.
eh,
We'll see.
but this comes back to the thought that Hollywood has no new idea. Child's Play was a fantastically new idea when it came out, the original one. Okay. Written by the great writer Don Mancini, who actually created the concept and everything else, and he's actually been the screenplay and writer and everything else all the way through all of them that they've done, including the new series, which just recently aired on Sci-Fi.
Which is why we're one of the reasons why we're doing this episode. Sorry, had to interrupt you.
Exactly. You're good. So, and you want to talk about voice acting? The greatest voice for a character of that kind and most iconic voice is Brad Dourif, who plays Chucky himself. And he's played Chucky. Up till Mark Hamill just did it recently. He's played the voice of Chucky every time. Anytime there's ever been a Chucky, even a couple of commercials where they were doing like a Chucky thing or bringing a Chucky doll in to do something to sell something, it's always been Brad. Brad is fantastic. But another movie you guys might remember Brad from is Lord of the Rings. He
Who is
plays
he?
Wormtail.
Ah, that's
Yeah, he's Wormtail in Lord of the Rings. And we want to keep going down the list. Officer Mike in this one is played by Chris Sarandon. Now, that person might also ring a bell to you as for knowing names, such as Jack Skellington and uh, Prince Humperdinck from Princess Bride.
I was going to scream if you didn't say that.
I saw it like I'm like, oh, he's wanting Princess Bride. I'm gonna hold that one for a second.
I was like, yeah.
But you also got introduced to Alex Vincent, who played Andy in this one as well, who does a great job. Everyone on this does a fantastic acting job. This movie also comes out in 1988, right at the lull of horror movies where everything's kind of just pander, 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 and random story that they're coming up with. Um, they had a little bit of a resurgence with Friday or with Nightmare on Elm Street, but that dies down just about the same time this comes out, and this blew up. Like Chucky was like an amazing concept for a horror movie. And they've done doll things before. Like they had like Dolly Dearest and other ones like that. They came out before this.
I
But
mean, even
this
Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop of Horrors wasn't a
That was
doll,
a
but
plant.
But there's toys involved, isn't there? Or I haven't
No.
I haven't seen it, so I just kind of ruined myself. Sorry, fans. I haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors. I failed you. As a
Yes, and Mo.
horror fan, I failed you. I'm sorry.
The sad part is Mel really loves that
Yeah,
movie.
that's
She'll tell you
that's
all about that movie and the play.
that's a mark against you right there from the musical theater nerd.
There should be a mark
Yep.
against me for interrupting Brian in his opening argument as well.
That
I
too.
apologize.
So technically 3 times, but I'm giving you only twice on that interrupting me. So, but
But each
guys,
time I
honestly,
was trying to help.
mm, with that being said, my opening argument is simple. There's no need to reboot this movie. The first movie, and that's the only one I'm really fighting for, even though I'll mention the other movies. But this first one I'm fighting for, didn't need to be rebooted. It was a fantastically well done movie that terrifies you and makes you afraid of something that you should not be afraid of. And that's what every good horror movie should do.
Okay.
Right. All right. So that was round 1, guys. Time to go into round 2, where we will now rebut what each other said.
Round 2. Fight.
All right. So first off,
You're wrong.
Isn't that
while
my
I love
decision?
the entire Child's Play series, the original was still finding its footing. I'm not saying it was bad or that's the worst. It's definitely not the worst, but it was finding its footing. In my mind, actually, the second one is my favorite. So it was finding its footing, and so we in that movie we find ourselves, definitely it's a product of its time. While I love Prince Humperdinck, well, Chris Sarandon, right?
Yep.
I don't know, the approach that they went with, and it's definitely not his fault. It's the direction and the writing and everything, but just a cop going so intensely after a 6-year-old and like so convinced, like from a storytelling perspective, it does detract from the story. The first time I saw this was actually in Spanish, uh, in high school, and while I enjoyed it because the voice acting is hilarious, um, I had a hard time with the story. I watched it, much later, like I said, back in probably like 2016 or 17. And I remember the first one, I was just like, I was kind of bored. Um, there's, it's actually not that, it's pretty benign. Like if that were to come out today, it would easily be PG-13. There's not actually that much violence, and the violence that is there is very mild. You see far worse in most superhero movies these days. Um, so I think, I don't know. It's just, while I love it, I think it was finding its footing. Whereas I think this new one, going for a more modern horror approach, and it kind of owned up to what it knew it was going to be right off the bat. I I think it deserves credit for that.
Well, see, it's all relative to time. I mean, there is a bit of difference between when both of them came out and what was scaring people at the time,
Mhm.
right? So right now you have this whole fear of the Internet of Things, basically how we're connected to everything, like Alexas, TVs, and so on and so forth. So that's why that one went for there. But that's not really the scary part. Like, there's not really a scare to that as it would be where it comes to voodoo. In 1988, that was a huge voodoo scare because it was dealing with a lot of stuff dealing with Haiti going on at that time. So there was a ton of movies coming out dealing with voodoo scaring things, such as like Mark for Death with Steven Seagal and other ones like that, that all had to do with the voodoo priests and possession and things like that, as well as this actually has something scary in it. It doesn't have a random robot, Alexa, that's safety stuff was not put in correctly. No, this one actually has a serial killer who knows voodoo and is able to keep coming back and coming back and coming back because of his ability of transferring his soul to something else. Imagine somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or something like that who's able to continue to kill and go into a new body and kill again and go into a new body and kill again. And you mentioned about how Andy was 6 and the cop was all over him. there's also tons of different stories about young kids, including want to say around that time there was a little girl named Mary Bell, and it's a true story of a serial killer girl named Mary Bell who killed 4 or 5 little kids in her neighborhood. That was around, I want to say, around the 70s and 80s. So this would still been fresh in people's minds. So it's not out of the realm that a cop would have this concept and think that this is something possible.
Okay, but the reason why the cop is after him is because the babysitter, an adult, a very well-adjusted person, uh, as I recall, sober, fell out of a window.
Yep.
Andy was tiny. No, there's no way Andy can push an adult out of a window. It's not going to
And Chucky
happen.
could.
And there's a hold on. There is a difference, though. Again, Chucky possessed by a serial killer, and he does have supernatural strength for a doll. And like, I would be far more surprised and be like that. The way she falls out makes sense because of Chucky, but like Andy attacking and pushing her like that makes far less sense. It just does.
Okay,
But
well, you have 2 boys. You can't tell me that those boys suddenly have a superhuman strength when they're coming running at you head first and/or hands first towards your cock. Okay, they have superhuman strength, just like Andy could have to push this chick out the window if he came running at her to push her,
nope,
i.e., how Chucky did it.
nope,
So it is
nope.
theoretically still
My
possible.
kids have not knocked me over or any adult, and they've tried. So
Yeah.
so with them trying, it's not happening. But I want to come back to a point. You said that AI and like voice assistants, like that's not scary. This is a real fear. The fact that someone can jimmy rig something like that or hack into it or change something about it and affect your life is a very real fear. There are stories of people hacking into people's baby cams and screaming at babies and waking them up. Uh, that kind of stuff happens, and that is all because of this type of technology. So the fact that we're so connected to this technology and one crazy person can ruin your life with it is a real fear. I know people that refuse to have these devices in their home because of this fear. So it is a relevant fear for the time, and one that makes, I mean, yes, voodoo was a relevant fear, I assume. I That came out when I was born. So for the 80s. Um but I think that it still hits that relevance. It still is a very intense movie. And you know, if you are a horror fan, you go to a movie to be scared. You also go to laugh, and you go for good kills. It slashers specifically. This is a slasher. We are in the slasher genre. So if you are going to a slasher, you want to see good fun kills. There are not good fun kills in the original. There are amazing, fantastic, great fun kills in this movie.
Are you hitting your desk?
That's way to
Yes.
emphasize the point.
I was pounding
Okay,
the
because
desk.
like your internet quality apparently went to crap, so it's not showing anything for me at all for your video. And every time you hit the desk, like you do this like reverb sound in your mic because of it.
Oh,
Yeah, the video kind of vibrated really weird. It was fascinating.
it's probably my crappy camera.
Okay.
Anyways,
All right. Well, going with that thought, you know, I think my thought to it, and why it doesn't bother me as much with the Internet of Things concept, is where you and I both work in the tech world.
yeah.
We know how it works,
Mhm,
right? And I think there comes to being a thought of the fear of the unknown,
mhm,
right? There is a innate knowingness of how the Internet of Things work, at least to a bit, right?
yeah.
So you know the way to protect you against um, people hacking into your Internet of Things is getting like some kind of good security system or firewall or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can work around. You have an understanding of how to protect yourself. Where on the opposite end, where it comes to voodoo, there's not really a good way to know how to protect yourself against that voodoo kind of curse thing. Again, and not to mention, like, but going to the concept of your movie right now, dealing with the modern scare, the current movie are do this a lot more than the old ones do. And the old movies, such as like Friday the 13th, Halloween, uh, Nightmare on Elm Street. The greats of it were what they would be in a slash movie, which is this is essentially what that is.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They build suspense. Okay, you don't just suddenly have the thing attacking and suspenseful. I didn't feel any suspense in watching the new one. It doesn't have it. Now, what this one has is just gratuitous gore for the sake of gore. Um, and if you guys haven't seen this, please go watch both these movies. They are at least worth the watch, honestly. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the new one, which is why I'm fighting for this old one, but it is at least worth the watch. But there's a scene where they use a ground tiller to rip the scalp off of a guy after he breaks his legs falling off of a ladder that's on a house that's not even 2 stories high. It's a single story building, and he falls off of a ladder and like breaks his thigh or breaks his fibia and
Shins.
tibia leg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shin, yeah.
it's the fibia and tibia. It's the shin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
We're
not wrong.
simplifying it for those of us that don't know what fibia tibia means.
Okay, so breaks the shin bones.
Thank you.
And it's just gratuitous, right? And they do it for a laugh
But
because
that's
he
what you
falls
want.
and he's standing there for a second. No, like there's a difference between doing a good movie for a laugh, like a good kill for a laugh, and doing it for pandering. And this is pandering because you do it
This-
where he drops, stands there for a second, like, oh, my leg. And the girls are like watching with their headphones on, trying to say that kids are oblivious to everything when they have their screens in front of them. And then he falls over and they're like,
Oh, you're overthinking
what's
that.
outside? No, it's exactly.
No,
right. Okay.
you are definitely overthinking that. Look, that is the genre. You go back and watch the old slashers. They're not scary. They're uncomfortable because that's the point of a slasher. A slasher isn't really scary. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you question how fragile life is, but it's not really scary. They're fun. And that's why we like the silly, crazy kills. Any fan of the genre, if you are a slasher fan, that kill was exactly what the movie needed, especially because not much had happened up until then. A cat died. That
Yes.
kill was
And
perfect
it's the first
and
kill.
hilarious.
It is for film, but like there's like he's laying there waiting for the tiller to come at him, right?
No, he's pushing it back.
No, it's before he pushes it back. He's crawling away to his phone, and the tiller's coming at him. And I'm assuming they're trying to imply that the Christmas lights that are tangled up on him are getting pulled in the tiller, but you never see that happen. He could have literally just rolled to his right and would have been safe from the tiller and could have dealt with Chucky.
Have you ever broken both of your shins and had them sticking out of your skin before?
No,
I'm confident that him moving it up, like you could tell that the crawling was killing him. I'm sure rolling wasn't going to be much better. And again, we're talking about something's controlling the tiller. It's gonna it can aim it.
It is not in other things. He just turns it on, and that's it. He just turns it on and lets it go does its thing. In fact, Chucky comes from the other side, implying that he walked around. So he could have rolled even with the pain. If something was coming to try and kill me, like if I had the Indiana Jones rock rolling towards me and my leg was like cut off, I would be in pain and bitching, but I would have rolled.
Look,
right?
It's a good kill, and you can ask fans of slashers, and they will all agree with me. This is a good kill scene, period. We are not even debating that your movie is better than mine over this kill scene, because everyone that likes slashers is going to agree with me that this is a good kill scene.
But give you even a better option of this, okay? For all those who haven't or haven't had the opportunity of seeing the Halloween that came out in 2017 or the Halloween Kills that just came out, both of those came out and then they're in a modern time, right? But they purposely go out of their way to make a new slasher style or use the old slasher style for building suspense. Everything that you see is suspenseful building up to it. There's not a joking thing or anything
When
like
he
that.
kills the reporters in the bathroom, that was silly and fun and hilarious and delightful and just as nonsensical. You can't get out of a public bathroom? What? You can just bunk their noggin on the wall? That's come on, man.
He's smashing the crap out of him with a super strength against the head, which is better than any of the stuff that you see in the Chucky movies.
Okay,
the new one.
Well, let's look at the original.
And she's trying to crawl away. And he catches her because it's building that suspense. he walks away and comes back. That's building suspense.
It's not that.
That kind of style
It
thing,
was
which is
funny.
on that same token, is newer and better quality.
It's
As well
not.
as the old Chucky stuff had the ability of doing that stuff too, which didn't deal with all the crazy half the pander stuff that this new one
Oh,
did.
because voodoo makes so much more sense and is so much more grounded. No, you can't use that argument. If you're talking
It's
about
not grounded.
craziness, like, again, the kill is fine. It's funny. That's what kills in slasher movies are supposed to be. That's why there's a million Friday the 13th. The only one that actually like has any suspense at all is the original. The only one. The only reason why it continued past that was because the kills are hilarious.
They started getting funnier and funnier as they went on, but the first several movies had a lot more suspense than any of these did. Oh yeah,
Only the
a
first
lot
one.
better off. No, but even with that being said, it's the quality of that kind of thing. In the new Chucky movie or the old Chucky movies, they had those nice slow suspense kills too, building up to trying to figure out, is this doll actually doing a thing? Is he going to do something? You don't know. And yes, voodoo is not grounded, right? By any means. But that's what's scary about it because it's something we don't understand. Just like ghosts, right? Just like witchcraft, just like the
Just
super
like
scary thing
AI and
alien.
voice assistants.
I understand a good majority of that,
Okay,
as
but
do you.
there's voodoo people that I'm sure would be like, yeah, that's not how that works. So if you
Oh yeah.
if you know, like, yeah, voodoo is a small niche, but people that know voodoo are like, yeah, that's not how that works, man.
Yeah,
Just
but
like
it's
you and I
relative
can
to
look
the
at the
amount of people that
AI,
know things.
the voice assistant, and be like, yeah, that's not how that works. But you can shut off and be like, it's still fun.
No, it's relative into the like amount of things. Yes, there might be people who understand how voodoo work, but I'll guarantee you, there's a lot more people that understand how the Internet of Things work, relative to the percentage of people. So again, it's relative to what scares people as on the whole. And for me, it was not scary. Now, that being said, to the audience, it may have been scary to you. This might be one of your fears, and for that, I'm not going to complain to you. I'm not going to say anything. That's on you. For me, it did not play at all. Okay, I saw this kind of thing when they did movies dealing with like the Whopper computer, you know, way back when in war games. I don't need to see it now. It's not scary to me.
I mean,
And that's what this whole movie was. There was not really a scare to me. It's not scary. Well, when I went inside Chucky, and mind you, I watched it like younger than you did. I watched it when I was like 8. Okay. Um, because I didn't grow up in a house where I was sheltered in my bedroom the whole time. And so, but I mean, to be fair, I saw Friday the 13th when I was 6 months old. Okay. That's my uncle took me to go see that movie. So I've been around horror movies my whole life. Um,
dude,
but I was terrified. And I think there's a bit of a nostalgia to that terror for me because of that.
and I totally understand that. But tell me, be perfectly honest, arguments aside, like, when was the last time a movie actually scared you? I haven't been scared, like legitimately scared in a horror movie, years. It's been a very long time. Yet it is my favorite genre and I watch every one that I can. So,
See,
are
for
you
me,
actually scared?
I think for me, it's relative to the kind of scare. Like, I don't do like the hiding under my covers as I'm watching the movie kind of scared in most movies anymore. But when I watch certain ghost movies like The Ring and such, anything like that, that is something I don't understand, but I can have a faith that like I believe that there's a possibility of such things. That one scares me. So when I go to bed, I have to be watching something funny after watching that, or can't sleep well. So yeah, there have been plenty of ghost style movies like that that I just can't deal with, and that's a still a terror for me. But and somebody could have that kind of same terror for the Internet of Things or for a toy, but that didn't work for me.
And that's totally fine. I was just curious. I just wanted to ask because again, movies don't really scare me. If you anyone that watches a horror movie with me uh will know that I laugh through the entire thing, no matter the genre of horror. I find it hilarious. I have just the most fun that I can possibly have. It probably makes me sound like a terrible person, but it's like it's the only thing that legitimately just makes me smile.
So I do know of a horror movie that you would have watched that recently that probably would scare the crap out of you.
What?
It's called The Proposal.
I've seen it.
Okay, not gonna lie, I'm. You may not be scared at horror movies, but I'm a little scared at Tom right now. especially describing kills as hilarious and what was the other? Delightful.
They are. You know it's fake.
Okay, Mo, I've seen you laugh at horror movies too.
Valid, but that's beside the point.
Nah,
Right.
I think that is the point then.
Okay.
And we both know of a little girl who started laughing like crazy at like 6 months old watching the end of Hellraiser. So because we're good aunts and uncles.
That was not my fault, and I will not take the blame for it.
I didn't say you were blamed. I said we know of one.
Yes. I love her.
I want to add one more point. You mentioned that it's like it's not really believable the way Chucky does his kills, like the way like, and I totally get it, but you the reverse of that argument is neither is a little doll believable. Like I can run away, I can run it over with a steamroller for God's sake. Like Chucky as an adult, as a basic principle, Chucky is not really scary, and like the practicality, the ease of getting away from Chucky as a normal human, it's not that hard. I would be terrified if Pumpkinhead or Jason or Freddy Krueger, but Chucky, no.
Well, to go with that real quick before we end this round, uh, that comes up to being the doll itself. It's a concept that we all would have is there's no way I just saw this doll do this thing. That can't be real. There's something wrong with this doll. So we would get in close to the doll. And that's the secret about Chucky. Is it's so benign on what it is that when it ends up trying to kill you, it's out of nowhere, which I think is more terrifying than a lot of things. And this works for both movies, by the way. Don't for both movies it has the same concept. The people are gonna generally believe that there's no way a doll is doing it, right? And that's how Chucky kills is based off that belief. It's like, no,
And
there's no way, right? But you walk in on something like Michael Myers or Jason, they have to get those scares because people will run and they'll die tired. But Chucky, yes, you could run away from. And if you look at how most of the Chucky movies end, that's generally what happens is people recognize that finally that Chucky is evil and they do something to be like, he's evil, but he's a bloody doll, so we can handle this,
yeah.
right? And that's how all these, including yours,
And,
they end that same way.
and you're right. And so I like this is a fault of both of them, and that's why when I watch these movies, they are more of a comedy than anything. Because I'm sorry, a 10-pound at best doll jumps on me, I have no problem. Like even if he's got a huge machete, like I can just catch him, throw him, kick him. It's like if a doll attacks me, no matter like unless he shoots me with a gun, that's his only chance. Like if he shoots me with a gun, then he wins. But if he attacks me with any sharp thing, as soon as I see him attacking me, everything clicks. Like, oh, this is an evil doll. You're dead. You came at me with the wrong thing. I will destroy you. You got nothing.
Well, see, this goes also to the fault of why your version of Chucky, the 2019 version, doesn't play well, at least for me, is dealing with the motive of the character, right? So the Charles Lee Ray, the serial killer that becomes Chucky, he has been being a serial killer, and serial killers generally know how to essentially emotionally trap people to understand that, oh, these persons aren't going to hurt me, they're not going to do something like that, or to be able to convince them that they are good people. So Charles Lee Ray would already have that nated in as the good doll Chucky, or the good buddy, whatever,
Yeah, good guy.
doll, good guy, that's it, the good guy doll as Chucky. And so he would be able to play off that, knowing emotions how they is. Where he's obviously a psychopath, he's not going to have the ability of having his own emotions, but he's going to be able to mimic emotion or lack of. And that's what makes so good about the original one. In this new one, you even see Chucky walking around be like, oh guys, yeah, that's funny that happens in that horror movie. The people like Tom are laughing at. So I'm going to go and grab a knife and I'm going to kill somebody just because Andy thought it was funny, right? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where it doesn't play. It doesn't give me terror because at that point you realize, all right, I'm gonna go take this doll back because this doll has got a recall waiting for it somewhere, right? But you don't have that because it's the mind of a serial killer in a doll, and that's what the terrifying part is.
I
But with that being said,
all right.
Unless you got something to say, Tom.
I,
Doesn't he always?
I just the fact that the doll can control my household appliances, and we're talking about, the movie sets up that this is a giant corporation that controls your gas, that controls your air, everything about your lifestyle in your home. They set that up, that this company controls that. So the fact that a doll can get a grudge against me, and an AI that someone manipulated. Yeah, we only see him saying take off safe mode, but who's to say? Like, the guy was miserable. He hated his job. He hated his life. He had it out. Like, and he was a coder. He was a developer. He was on a computer writing code. So who's to say they didn't have a plan? He didn't write something. They didn't show it because you don't have to show that. Like, we don't have to go into hours of him figuring out code. We can just assume that he did something bad, and this doll is now got a grudge, and now he can just blow up my house.
So, we're gonna end this real quick in the round. This is not the fighting for it. It's just my own personal dislike of the movie, which I think is what killed me for the movie to begin with. Is that opening scene with that being a coder? There's no way that would have gone to that phase. That guy's coding the code for each individual doll. That would have never happened like that. But that's not like that's a fault on understanding coding. That's not really the movie's fault. So I'm not gonna slide at that. That's just my own gripe about
It's
it.
kind of every
Uh,
movie's understanding of coding
right?
fault.
If you
You know?
if you guys ever watch a movie too, like sometimes I'll watch a movie and I'll look at the code that they're doing or they'll have in the background or something. I'm like, that's a Hello World thing. Somebody just literally took that off with like Stack Overflow.
Yeah. Ooh, that's
Anyhow,
HTML4.
right? That being said, let's go ahead and right into final thoughts. Unless Mel, if you have any questions that you want to talk about or any things to prompt the conversation.
Um, actually, I do have one for you, Brian, because this is something that I've
All right.
kind of thought about.
I'm already married, so
Oh, honey, you're not my type, but I love you.
that's a lie.
So I know specifically you've been talking about the first movie, and Tom's mentioned that he enjoyed the second movie. For someone who is coming into the series later in life after all of these things have happened, how do you think basically the entire backlog of Chucky movies, like up to the super insanely campy like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, when they just sort of gave up and decided to be funny and weird, does that in any way detract from enjoyment of the original movies, or
No, you have to think of it as a separate thing. Where you're watching essentially the first three, because the first three are kind of their own bit away from the ones from Bride of Chucky on. Where you have Cosplay 1, 2, and 3, they are all dealing with stuff dealing with Andy or trying to get to Andy, right? And that's the big thing. From Bride on, they don't really deal with Andy much, and they're kind of the whole of it, uh, in their own bit. Where like the first one is scary. The second one is kind of the better movie, but they also have a little bit more laughs. The third one's got a lot more laughs, but less scary, and that's kind of the worst of the three. Though I love the paintball gimmick that they do with that later. But those like, if I were to tell someone to go and like they ask me like what movies should they watch in the Child Play series, I would start by asking them, are they looking for a funny scare or a scare? Because that's exactly how I would break it down. The first three movies are essentially just a scary movie, right? Everything from Bride of Chucky, um, The Seed of Chucky, The Cult of Chucky, those ones, they are funny. They kill Britney Spears in one of them. Okay, uh, and then I haven't gotten the chance to watch the series now that that one's out, which just came out this last Tuesday. But I want to see that because it's supposed to be one canon to the story, and I want to see how it goes with which one it's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be like the later three, which are the funny ones, or like the original three, which are the scary?
okay? Um, I have another, but I'm trying to think how to actually articulate it. Sorry.
Well, you can ask him; he's single.
Still not my type, but okay. Um,
I'm not most people's. I laugh in horror movies.
okay, that's probably
Red
my type, but
flag.
that's beside the point. See, now I forgot my thought. Oh my god.
You're welcome.
So Tom, this is so I admit I haven't seen the original Child's Play movie for a few years, so that was kind of just going off of memory. I did, however, watch the new one about a little over a week ago. And for me, someone coming in, I'm not a coder. I don't do computer stuff. I am not that level of nerd. My computer stops working. I call this guy right here or my stepdad. Like, that's. I don't do computer stuff. But.
Absolutely to your credit, because the first time I saw it, I was like, "What?" You're not wrong. Like I said, this is not a perfect movie. These are very silly movies. And that's why I was like, and I said from the beginning, I'm playing devil's advocate. Um, I'm, taking the unpopular opinion here. But I think, again, we're talking about Child's Play. These are silly movies. They're they're campy. They're definitely both this remake and the original, including all of its sequels, are 100% outside the realm of reality. As
Let's hope so.
a-
I've got 2 kids with a lot of dolls.
as as horror is, though, and as it should be. Like, they came up with something. They had an idea, like, what if, like, Chucky was actually just like a voice assistant gone rogue. I liked the idea that they had a voice assistant in, like, an animatronic doll. I remember loving animatronics as a kid, so I liked that. You know, most your modern layman doesn't know anything about coding and programming. So that scene is going to be like, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically
Bad?
no, it's basically just spoon feeding you. All right, here's the realm of reality. This is dumb. Now that you know the world and the element that we're playing with here, watch our story. It's exposition. It's just exposition in movies is always painful, and it is always bad, almost always. And this was just a case of bad exposition, but they get through it in the very beginning, and then after that, it just kind of carries on. We're aware of this silly reality that we are now experiencing this story. And so again, for me, if I'll save the rest for my.
There you
Okay.
go. Any other questions, Mo?
No, I think I'm good on those two.
All right. So now we've gone through that fun debate, and that was quite entertaining, actually. Let's go ahead and go to our final thoughts, where here we will try to win Mo with our last ditch efforts to say why our movie is better. So,
Final round. Fight.
All right. So just to kind of finish my thought, I lost that train. I'll come back to it.
yeah, be real.
Yeah. So you made a point, and it was a really good point. And I just want to answer it as part of my final thoughts that Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray is the voice of Chucky. And the only thing I gotta say about that is, if there's anyone that exists that can live up to that in any way, shape, or form, it is Mark Hamill. So at least we got a good spiritual successor for the voice of Chucky. I know he is not Brad Dourif, but I just wanted to add that. This movie, again, to finish my train of thought. So again, yes, we have kind of a silly premise that it starts off with, but what brought me back very quickly, and I talked about this in my opening argument, is the dynamic between the characters. The mother and the son, that dynamic is amazing. And he's estranged. He's in a new town in, I believe it's Chicago, right? Yeah, Chicago. He's in a new town. He doesn't have any friends. His mom wants him to make friends. Everyone has seen those memes a million times of like, oh, I grew up and not coming home till the streetlights turned on. Like, that's how my kid's gonna live. No, like, when a kid is lonely, they turn to their technology. That makes sense. He's lonely. He's in a new town. He turns to his technology. He's getting bugged by his mom to go make friends, and he's scared and he's uncomfortable. He's different. He's deaf. So, like, the dynamic there, the struggle between them makes perfect sense. And I love Officer Mike. The him coming in, he was an incredibly good character. I loved that dynamic with him and his mom. Him just coming to visit. Him trying like seeing this struggling young kid, and he's an officer of the law, and he's like, like we've got a bad image as it is, but I'm just gonna, kind of poke at him and just try and have fun. Like I loved the dynamic between all the characters, down to the boyfriend. Like they are out there. Boyfriends and girlfriends are out there, manipulative, liars, terrible people. That guy got his just deserves, even though Brian was uncomfortable with it. He got his just deserves uh, for a horror movie. I would never wish that actually upon anyone. Um, as a slasher movie stands, this movie is exciting. It has great kills, which the first one does not have. And so I think because of that, it stands on its own as a great horror movie, as a great child's play movie, as the only possible way that you could have fun rebooting it without Brad Dourif and without voodoo. And because of that, I think it stands in its own right, in its own regard, and it is fun and exciting. Yeah.
All right. So let me start by saying I agree partially with what you're saying. Like the dynamic that the actors did, like the actors were on point. They were actually probably my favorite part of the movie. Because they were able to build great chemistry and dynamic to it. I think what killed this movie for me was both the directing and the screenplay. On how they did things. Like you give crap to directors or to a director, and they might be able to make something good. You give a great screenplay to a director, and people can be like, "I can see where you were going with." And you have great actors working in there, which they had great actors. Even the kid was a really good actor
Mhm.
in that. I mean, my favorite part for those movies was Audrey Plaza and the little redheaded chick who was his friend.
Yeah.
They were the best parts of the thing. And don't get me wrong, I love Mark Hamill. I'm a Star Wars fanboy, and I love him as Joker. That's the voice I hear in my head. We've talked about it many times. I just don't think he was right for this role in that aspect for the voice. But with all that being said, your movie was done in two different ways, better both ways. HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey was a lot better AI like killing machine than yours was, and a Treehouse of Horror episode of The Simpsons where they had an evil Krusty, and all they had to do was turn a switch on to make it good. That's my literally when I was watching your movie. That's what my brain kept jumping to was that like Treehouse of Horror episode. Okay,
It may or may not have
where
crossed my mind.
where with mine, it like legitimately gave me a fear. And like joking, not joking. Sometimes I'll be in my room and my girls will leave me like leave a doll in my room, and I have to either put the doll in the closet, go take it to the girls' room so that it can kill my girls, or something else like out away from me because it. I still have a slight fear of the dolls for that reason. Like, like again, I watched this when I was 8 years old, so it's definitely put an imprint in my brain. But Child's Play for me was so terrifying as an 8-year-old watching it. And I watched it again recently, and it's more of a nostalgic terror, kind of like when I watch any horror movie slash movie from the 80s. But it gave me that fear. I can't imagine I would have a fear of the Chucky from 2019 by itself as I would be more afraid of an Alexa, if that makes sense. I'm not really afraid of the doll. Like the whole aspect of Chucky is to be afraid of the doll, right? And I'm not afraid of the doll. I might be afraid of the Internet of Things. I might be afraid of my Alexa, which is essentially what it is, but that's two different things. And that I think is where your movie falls short to this one. Is it's there. Like you can see the path they're going down. You can see what they were trying to do, but they just fell so short. And the only reason that this movie was watchable at all, honestly, for me, was the acting, the ability of having those great actors having that good of chemistry. But you lose out on not great kills or easy, like not good kills for me. For me, some people like yourself might enjoy them, but for me, I wasn't a fan of the kills. Um, and
Sadistic.
right. And one thing that bothered me that I didn't bring up was the kid being deaf. They only ever like talk about him being deaf. Like you visually see it, and I think she asks about his hearing aid one other time, but you only ever see it for a single line in the movie is when he gets slapped and his hearing aid falls out, and that literally is a plot point to pick up the kid's phone later, is the kid gives him crap about being able not to hear him. I'll tell you that you never hear anybody bring up that he's deaf or anything about referencing his lack of hearing at all. So it's really not being even like respectful to people who are deaf. It's not giving them representation. So it's really just pandering as a plot device at that point. But with that being all said, this movie of the original Child's Play movie is the better movie because it had general fear of something unknown with voodoo and has actually a motive in being a serial killer. Charles Lee Ray's whole motive is to get a new body so he can go being a serial killer again and live on again to do so. The motive of your movie was I want to make him happy, and if I can't make him happy, nobody can. So, all right.
Before we get into judgment, this is not an argument, but I just want to comment that Brian and I have actually been arguing about this all week.
Yes.
We could easily go on for another 2 hours with like
I literally brought up none of the argument stuff that I brought up when we talked about this at work the other day. So.
Yeah, I didn't talk too much about it either. Like, like your final argument, there were like I wanted to argue against every point. I'm not going to, but yeah. But that being said, we want to hear your guys' points. Mel,
Yes.
what are your thoughts based on the arguments? What's going through your head?
All right. Well, you definitely both brought up very good arguments. Like I said earlier, I have not seen the original Child's Play for several years, probably at least 5 years. I probably should have watched it at some point this week. But I did see the new one recently, and as you know, a single girl living by herself, I have 5 different Alexa devices in my home right now, in my 1-bedroom apartment. So the idea of something controlling any of there's literally 2 next to me right now. The idea of something being able to control that and to control the other devices in my home that are connected to those, that is pretty scary. Whereas a random serial killer possessing a doll, I don't know, maybe it's just because I've never been much of a doll person. Not as scary for me. Just not something that ever came up. I don't have children anyway. So I don't have the fears that Brian has with dolls in the bedroom, but
Creepy little bastard.
Yeah. Also, but that being said, the original Chucky doll, he was creepy looking. Like that's the and once he got later when he got all the terrifying looking new Chucky doll, he's really cute. I liked him. He was adorable. And the fact
Chucky bear was
oh god, the bears are gonna haunt my nightmares.
Scary!
They were scared.
I thought they were cute as hell. Like, I'm gonna go pick those up and build a bear.
See, obviously we're different. I thought the doll was cute as hell. The bears were scary. And I will never not be able to hear Mark Hamill as either Joker or Luke Skywalker. Or, I mean, I've got some Avatar The Last Airbender art on my lone wall right now. So I like Mark Hamill. He's a great voice actor. But the voice I hear in my head when you mention Chucky is Brad Dourif. It's always going to be. You cannot get away from that. I mean, I was like 1 when the first movie came out, so I didn't see it until I was later.
Now.
You are old. It's okay.
I admitted that I didn't really have an argument to stand on there, and that's why I was like, but at least it's Mark Hamill?
Like, oh, this is tough, and you both did really good arguments.
Which is a lot to Tom, because this should have been a freaking swish for me because of how much garbage that movie was. So great arguments, Tom.
You did a very good job, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to give this one to Brian. There's something to be said for the classics, for that Chucky voice, for like the iconic look with the kind of wild hair, and he's got all the kind of suture marks everywhere, and a doll like that is gonna scare me a lot more than cute Mark Hamill doll. I would own cute Mark Hamill doll. I would never let Chucky into my house.
That's a fair point. You know what? Like, honestly, Brian, you brought it. Your final argument. There was a few points, and I can't recall them off the top of my head, but there was a few points you made. I was like, that's gonna seal it for him. I really can't argue against that. He's absolutely right. And like I said, I was playing devil's advocate. I love the original. And so I like as much as I really did enjoy the new one, I just can't put it above the original just because the original is still very good, and it brings us to number 2, which is the best of the franchise, and I love everything about number 2. It's
Really good.
up there, one of my top slashers.
Yeah, it number 2 is very good. It is definitely its empire. So, um, but well, thank you first of all, Mel, for joining us for this, and thank you for, of course, choosing the right person. And
Curse
Oh,
you,
I'm never gonna
Brian.
hear that. If you
no,
remember
you're
though,
not.
last time I didn't pick you, so I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, I do.
We just taking turns?
I
Is that
got
how this works?
I got like a whole Steve Buscemi from Billy Madison list going on over here.
Am I off your vengeance list now?
Yeah, let me just mark it off and another little thing.
Good,
All
because
right,
your daughter loves me, so you can't kill me.
both my children love you. So, what? But guys, with that being said, let us know what your thoughts are. Honestly, this was a lot more of a debate than I was expecting it to be. Because I was really not a fan of the new one at all. Which, if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, most people weren't.
Hmm.
But uh, let us know what you guys think. Right down here in the comments here on YouTube, and of course you can comment it or send us messages on our social medias such as
Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
on Twitter at BeHeroFights or BeHeroMedia, as well as you can always find everything that is BeHeroMedia at BeHeroMedia.com, including our merch. If you guys want to help support us, that's the place to do it.
Exactly. And if you liked this fight, there have been lots of remakes to
Oh yeah,
fantastic horror movies and action movies and everything. So if you liked this fight and you want to do more of the comparing the original versus the remake, we would be happy to do them. So
Nightmare on Elm
great.
Street. Sorry.
I actually would love to play devil's advocate on that one.
Oh my gosh,
As much as I know it pales, I think that would be a fun one to play devil's advocate for.
that one hurts my heart. Actually, like I talked about before, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror movie series of all time.
Mine too.
Ironically, I was complaining about like going into being more camp and funny, but I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street is where that started, and I think that's why I like it so much is because of that. But like, I just had my wife watch the first one for the first time just recently, and I fell in love with that movie all over again. It is so good. Uh, I love it too because there's a certain scene in it that everybody knows about how Johnny Depp dies, and uh, I was getting ready to watch that, and my wife had asked me just before that scene. She goes, "How gory does this movie get?" I'm like, "Gory, not so much. Bloody, you're about to see."
Oh, I
And
do
if you
have
guys,
to on that. Sorry, I have to remark on that real quick. There is nothing wrong with gratuitous gore, and I agree with Tom that kill was awesome. Just
Yes.
yeah,
That's
where
what I'm calling that a win. That's all I needed. That's all I needed.
all right, yeah, continue.
if you guys haven't seen it yet, by the way, on Netflix right now they have a thing that's called the movies that made us, and they have a series, or in that series, in the new season, they have 3 movies right now that are fantastically chosen on there, which is Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. And they go through and talk about how all those movies were made and everything else on there. I mean, they have other ones too, like Back to the Future, RoboCop, and so on. But um, the Nightmare on Elm Street one is so good, and apparently they almost killed somebody in that one scene when they were doing the part with Johnny, because they splashed all of that liquid down for the blood and forgot to turn the light the electricity off into the light that was right underneath it. It almost like zapped somebody holding on to the bottom of the thing. Yeah.
Yeesh.
So,
That's
but all
a
right,
nice
guys.
sight.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you again, Mel, for joining us for this great episode. And if you guys want to reach out to Mel and look at some of the stuff she's been doing on her YouTube page, she does a lot of great stuff with setting up images and things like that she does in Photoshop. Go on to her YouTube page, which is Mel.
It is Melanie H Photography. I can also be found on Facebook as Melanie H Photography, and I'm pretty sure on Instagram as Melanie_H_photography. It's pretty easy to find me.
She does some great work. I always, beg and plead and ask her for a birthday present of doing my family pictures because she does such a great job, and she's done it every year for us so far. Uh,
It's because
but
you're an artist,
guys,
not you.
it's true. I mean, my whole family's cuter than I am. But
Mine too.
guys, thank you guys again for joining us for this great episode, and we hope to catch you guys next week. So, unless you guys have anything else, all right, guys. As always,
Fight
fight
on.
on. Catch you guys next week.